welcome to Soul Symbols. My name is Shelley. I'm a writer, an astrologer, and a card reader, and I'd like to welcome you to my channel. Happy Tuesday. It is How to Tarot Tuesday, and what that is every Tuesday I post a video that focuses on one of the 78 card tarot. What I do is I go through and I pick 3 tarot decks that I think best represents the card that we're talking about. And for the first portion of the video, we discuss the symbols in the card. And then afterwards, I go ahead and let you, the viewer, choose from the 3 tarot or oracle decks. And we'll go ahead and do a short reading to show how that card manifests in your life. If you ever want to jump straight to your reading, the timestamps are always listed in the description box below, and as are the names and the descriptions of the decks that I use. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. Today is kind of a special day. I can't believe we're already through the first suit. We are talking about the King of Wands. And the King of Wands is the last card in the Wand suit, which represents fire. And I'm really kind of blown away because there are 4 suits in tarot and there are major arcana. And we've already gone through the major arcana, and we've now gone, today would be the last sign, last card of the wand suit. So it is really exciting, and it feels kind of like a graduation. It feels like a culmination. And so I'll go ahead and get started. Now, the first deck is always the Rider-Waite-Smith. And what it is with the King of Wands, you see a man sitting on his throne. On the throne, you see gold lions and salamanders. And you see a man with also like a lion or panther kind of encrusted on his medallion. He wears a gold crown that looks like flames, and he wears a red cloak. A red gown with a golden cloak that also has salamanders on it. At his feet, you see one little salamander looking up at him, and you see that in his hand he holds the rod that represents his element. Now, what I think is most interesting is that the King of Wands does not, unlike other kings, he does not sit back on his throne. He seems to be looking forward, right? And even the covering of his head looks like flames, right? It looks like a red, kind of helmet of sorts. And he's always looking out, right? And I just think that's such a great counterpart, because last week we had a tarot on the Queen of Wands, and we talked about how she's always looking at the camera. But the King of Wands, he's not, even though you see him at an angle, at a profile, he's always leaning forward. And I think that's a very important element as we get into his description. He's ready for action, right? And the thing about the kings is that, and this is the first king that we're talking about of the 4 suits. The thing about the kings is that they are the culmination. They are the last card of the entire suit. And what it is you can be a woman and be in the energy of a king, right? You don't have to, gender makes no differentiation when it comes to tarot. And the beautiful thing about the King of Wands is that just like every other member of the court, just like the page, the knight, the queen, and honestly, just like any of the minors, he is very fiery. He is full of energy. He is full of passion and full of spirit. He has a livelihood about him. He's original and inventive, and he's creative. And the thing about the king, being the king, it's always good to be the king. He is energetic in the sense that he is masculine. He's very practical in the way that he approaches things. So just like the rest of his suit, he, being the last card of the wands, or being the last card of his suit, he's also seen it all, right? He's been through the ace, he's been through the 10, he's been through the page, he's, married the queen or been in the queen's energy. So when you finally get to him, he is really almost like the retired athlete of his suit, right? Because the other thing about the wands is that the wands rule energy. They rule spirit. They rule that vivacious spark of wanting to live, right? Of enjoying life. So a lot of times, he is very innovative. He creates projects, he follows through on projects. Now, just like the Queen, just like his counterpart, he's very CEO in the way that he has explored. And he's the thing about the wands is that they do things. They're the action people, right? And when you've lived long enough to be the king, it's one of those things where it's kind of like, I always kind of think of the King of Wands as kind of like the been there, done that guy. He's been the page. He's been the real kind of, stupid like a child, fun, innocent, of the wands. And then he's also been the knight, right? And I always refer to it as the Wile E. Coyote, jumping off the cliff, making the outline at the bottom of the canyon. And it's almost like he's been there and done that. So it's almost like in his maturity, he wants to help others with his experience, right? But he has definitely been the one who has jumped off the cliff, right? And in that vein, a lot of King of Wands can manifest as retired military. It can be active military. It can be a father who is in the armed services or has served. A lot of times it can mean generals. Sometimes it can be retired sports, members, or it can also be kind of the CEO. It can be the leader of a company, someone who's, what I almost think of? I almost think of kind of Bill Gates or, the creator of Apple. It's like they took the action in the beginning, and then later they still call the shots, right? But they were the pioneers in the beginning, right? It's almost like the CEO pioneer, the person who started the company and now is kind of standing back and just making sure that everything runs the way that it's supposed to run, right? So that's definitely the King of Wands energy. He does have, he's very open, and what I love about that leaning forward that we mentioned before, how he seems to be kind of engaged. He's watching, right? He's watching. And what it is that the King of Wands, he's the person, just like the Queen of Wands, he's the person who never loses his vitality. He's probably got a little bit of arthritis though, right? when you've again, like if you've been in sports or if you've been, and honestly, it could be someone who's a trainer, right? Someone who maybe was, someone who's older and has been there and experienced it and is there to teach others. But a lot of times the King of Wands is that person who has been there, done that, but he always has his eye on what's exciting. And what it is that he doesn't have to participate, but he will if he's interested, right? He's the person who does like to stay active. This can be a father or a grandfather who's a very active older adult. So, it could be someone who has never really lost their passion for life. But, I always think of it as I always feel a comfort when it comes to the King of Wands. It does almost remind me of like a grandfather or a father figure. Because just like the Queen, he's a warm parent, right? He's an engaging parent. And what it is that, this could be, a male figure in their life that still likes to fish or still likes to go, who still likes to, bike or run or, it's just someone who has experienced the highs of life and still likes to have that feeling, but they just, they choose their battles, so to speak. And so in that same vein, if it is a CEO, it's the person who still commands a lot of attention, when they're in the room. What I think of? I almost think of kind of a retired president kind of feeling, it's like, oh my God, that person is in the room, right? They led a country, right? But they're not in charge anymore. But they've been there, done that, and if anything were to happen, the King of Wands can also represent a very responsible kind of fire personality. You do see it with a lot of EMTs, like someone who's a first responder, a lot of firefighters. It can be a doctor, someone who knows how to take action when the situation calls for it. The other thing is that one thing that I've experienced too, and this is personal, my father was he's passed, but he was retired Marine, and I always remember he true to a fault, he was a skydiver, and he jumped out of planes. He did just about every daredevil thing you can imagine, and he actually did break every single bone in his body at least once. And I remember one time, my uncle drives motorcycles, drives Harleys, which are very safe. They're the safest bike that you can have. And I mentioned to my dad, I said, "Hey, I want to ride a Harley." And he goes, "Well, of all the bones I've broken in my body, I broke 4 of them, on a motorbike." And I remember questioning him a little bit about that. And because the dirt bike that he broke 4 bones on is the one that was like really like a rocket with a seat on it. It was what I call a crotch rocket. It's not a Harley. It's not a safe bike. It was probably something, that you created that, and he got thrown over a tea kettle, over the handlebars, and he broke 4 bones. And the beauty of it is that kind of energy. He's telling me that story because he doesn't want to see me break any bones. He does not want to see his baby girl get hurt. And but the thing about that is that I do also kind of think of a grandfatherly vibe. Like, there have been times when my grandfather is a presence in the room and he's so quiet, and then I'll go to try to do something impulsive. Not all the time, but when they'll speak up, the King of Wands will speak up when they think it's that you're doing something reckless, right? Because they've been there, done that, and they don't want to see you get hurt, right? They're sharing their knowledge to protect you. And of course, if the King of Wands is dealing with a Page of Wands or a Knight of Wands, that could be a grandfather dealing with a grandchild of the same element, fire and fire. Good luck with that. Because, but I have seen a lot of grandfathers that when the King of Wands puts his foot down and is like, "No, don't do that," you sit up and listen. Right? And again, that's that leaning forward. It's that, saying, "Look, I've done that. Don't do that." Right? But sometimes it's not even a protective thing. Sometimes you can be egging each other on, because again, if you have 2 persons in the same room that are both fire, it's like, the other thing that I get with the King of Wands is that they are very original, and they are kind of showy and theatrical, just like the Queen. They can be the actors of the world, not in a bad way. But I even said with the Queen of Wands, there are some positions in the world that require a certain amount of screen persona. Like, you do actually have to look good on screen. And just for the record, one American president that comes to mind is Ronald Reagan. How he was an actor first, and a lot of people don't remember that, but he had a presence, and he was trustworthy. And actually, a lot of politicians kind of started in Hollywood and then later transitioned into the political scene. But what it is that it can be someone who, the other thing is, with wands being spiritual, it can be a pastor or a priest. Like, if you see the King of Wands next to maybe a card like the Hierophant, because they're engaging with you. They encourage, they get you hyped up, right? When they speak, they get you engaged. So they do have that magnetic attraction, right? And again, holding the wand, it's almost like holding the walking stick. You can't help but pay attention to this man. They are someone who is watched, usually. They're someone who's looked up to. A lot of times, I always say with the entire Court of Wands, is that they teach by example. So the King of Wands, when they show you something, they're really showing you something, right? One other thing in the same vein as being like a grandfather or being a father, a lot of times it can be that father who has kids and who's kind of toned down as they've aged. But a lot of times, right now, if you're watching this video at the time it's posted, a lot of people are still, we're slowly coming out of the virus pandemic, and everyone is still self-isolating. I saw some really cute TikTok and YouTube videos where you see this father who steps into the kitchen next to his daughter, and his daughter starts dancing, and then he starts busting out some moves, and I kind of think of that as the King of Wands. It's like, hey, I used to do this, right? I still got it, right? Just like the Queen of Wands. I still got this. I can still bust a move. I might be a little, you might hear me popping a little bit because, but the other thing that I kind of think of is I do kind of, with that enthusiasm, with that, he's such a powerful and natural leader. I do kind of think of a superhero. A lot of superheroes are kind of that staple that, you look up to. And so, they are known for their vitality. They just seem like, the other thing is about the King of Wands is that man that you think never gets sick, right? He just has endless energy. Now, just like the Queen of Wands, that may not be true. What you see on Facebook might not be the truth. You might take that picture, and then the moment the picture or the video stops, you're like, oh my God, my back hurts, right? But because this man has seen some action, he's been, he's been there and back again. But one thing I always think of is I do think of superheroes, and maybe I'm guilty because I've been watching a lot of Iron Man lately. I don't know why. And the first movie just blows me away. I swear to gosh, it's just so well done. But you kind of look at that. It's almost like Tony Stark kind of started off as the Knight of Wands, and by the end of the movie, one scene that I think of, and just to compare it to the King of Wands, because I think it is a great comparison, is that when he tries out that suit and he doesn't even test it first, he just hops in the suit and starts flying, right? Then he flies out into the stratosphere, and not to spoil it, if you've seen the movie, pause this video now and watch the movie first. I'm sorry. I'm sure everyone's seen it. It's like 12 years old. But he gets out into the stratosphere and the suit starts to ice over, right? And he starts to fall, right? And he barely gets out of that situation with his life, right? And then later, he's got, he's holding an ice pack on his head, and he's like, okay, we need to fix that, right? But of course, like all good Hollywood movies, by the end of the movie, having gone through that experience is what saves him in the end, right? He knows it has that fault, and he can use that experience to his advantage, right? So that's kind of what I think of with the King of Wands. It's almost like you've done kind of all of the impulsive, stupid stuff, and then later you can really use that to your advantage. So now, that also makes him able to dominate his environment because he's tried things that no one else has tried before or dared to. It gives him that clout, right? But again, a lot of times it just makes him very energetic. It makes him someone that people want to follow. It's a decisive leader, someone who is a very skilled communicator, someone who can lead by example. Now the other thing is, with it being a wand, the other thing is that he can be a very, very practical entrepreneur. And the one thing about the King of Wands is it does make me think, just like I think of Steve Jobs or think of Bill Gates, it is someone who has learned by experience. And one thing that, they don't, that gets talked about sometimes is that in order to be a good leader, in order to be a CEO, a lot of those CEOs went bankrupt a few times, right? They flew into the stratosphere and froze up and fell, right? And so a lot of times that experience really did help them because they failed. Right? Edison did not create the light bulb on the first try. I think it was like 217 tries before he got that success. So that's the other thing about the King of Wands, is that a lot of people trust him because he's been through so much, and he's the king of trial and error, and it makes him experienced, and it makes him, a very charismatic businessman. It makes him someone that that you can follow. Now, again, with the wands being a phallic symbol, and we got to talk about this, my second deck, and you'll probably be seeing this deck with the court cards a whole lot, but I went with the Witch's Tarot, and what I think is great is that this other king is a little bit of, he represents a lot of the more flamboyant side of the King of Wands. So just like he can be, outgoing and vivacious, he can also be a little bit, that Knight of Wands energy doesn't completely go away when you're the king. You're still the knight. You still have that experience. So he can be a little bit proud. and not in a bad way. It's always a warm way. Anytime I see the King of Wands, I think warmth. And I do think that grandfatherly kind of clout. You know, you don't, when your grandfather puts his foot down and tells you not to do something, it isn't because he's trying to be the boss, it's because he knows what he's doing, right? But the other thing is that with the wand being a phallic symbol, and just like all of the other court cards, they are good at sex, right? That is something. And because it is their own wand, they can kind of know what they like in that area. And so, you know, not to be too graphic, but we do have to touch on it. The one thing about this king is you see that he has one hand here, but where is his other hand, right? And I know it's funny, you have to kind of look to see that in that card, but it is kind of, that is a side effect, and we'll actually see it a little bit more with the King of Wands in reverse than in the upright. But it is kind of, when you see that king, what I think of, and it's particularly when I'm using that deck and get that image, is that when you see the king in a spread like that and he's showing his more amorous side, it usually means that it's someone who is a mature fire element, like it's a mature fire male, and he is wildly attracted to you. Like if you're a woman and you get that in a spread, it isn't so much that he's being cocky, which he could be, but a lot of times it just means that that this person is very turned on by you, but they're not going to make a move because they know better. So that is one really big message, and you can get that with any deck, but you know, the Witch's Tarot really reaffirms that. Is like, you know, sometimes you might think, God, well, you know, I have this wild attraction to this man and he seems like he likes me, but then you get that card, you get the King of Wands, and it's like, okay, wow, he's, you know, you could be coming across as a little bit of bait where, you know, and again, being the king, having been there and, you know, taken his hits with that, he might know better, because it's like, okay, if I'm wildly attracted to this woman, but if I go for that, it's going to be trouble. So that is kind of like that. It is kind of, it can be a man who knows what he likes and isn't afraid. You know, he's not gonna cower. Again, the other thing is that these men are very brave. A lot of times they represent generals or people who've served or who've been to battles and come back. So a lot of times it is, you know, it's an adventurous man and an adventurous lover. And, you know, so a lot of times it is someone who doesn't give a crap what, you know, what the media will say about them or what other people think. Now, the last card, and this was kind of a tough one. I really knew my first two decks, the ones I wanted to go with. The third deck, I went with a tried and true, and if you watch my channel, you'll know the Morgan Greer Tarot is what I formally learned tarot on, and I turn to it so often, and it was funny, you know, I could have gone with any other deck to describe the King of Wands, but I went with this one because it felt right. And again, you know, it's the same profile, but it's kind of close up. And on his helmet, he has what looks like an eagle, like a small eagle, which really makes me think of the Emperor. And to be honest, the Emperor is astrologically labeled as the Aries card, and the King of Wands can be a fire sign like Leo's, Aries, Sagittarius. But I loved the warmth of it. He looks like a general, he looks like a soldier, he looks like a king. He's got gold and red and just all that red. You'll see in all three cards, you know, red is about live. It's about the color of blood. It's the color of life. It's color of passion and of drive. So they do, you know, in that sense, again, you know, being someone that you follow, you know, when the King of Wands manifests as a person, it usually is like, it can be an arbitrator, it can be a journalist, because it's someone who's front and center and you know, directing you on what to believe. It can be a teacher, it can be a professor, it can be a gambler. Sometimes it can be a salesperson. I do see it because the Wands rules higher learning, like the ninth house. First off, the first house is ruled by Aries, and it represents the sense of self. It's the persona you project into the world. The fifth house is ruled by creativity and what you love to do, your joy. And then the ninth house rules higher learning, which really does represent, college and learning and spirituality. It's a lot of what you believe. So it can be a pastor or a priest. It can be somebody who, and, in this digital age, a lot of times, you have to be in front of the camera. Now, when it comes to the King of Wands in reverse, again, as I've said before, any card in the reverse can be the exaggerated expression or the repressed expression. And I've said it with the entire fire suit, but when the fire suit it's almost kind of dangerous in both instances of the reversal, just because an exaggerated flame can burn out of control. A repressed flame can, dim and be extinguished. So when it comes to the King of Wands in reverse, the first thing that it usually rules is it rules self-righteousness. A lot of times, the first thing that I kind of see is I kind of see someone who has a lot of repressed anger, someone who sometimes it can be, and not to be scary, but to be kind of real. Sometimes it can be someone who feels wronged in their life, and therefore they take out those wrongs on other people. It's like that repressed kind of anger. It can be someone who's a hothead, someone who gets into fights. A lot of times when I see the King of Wands in reverse, I do see it as someone who refuses to be in the background. Like when they walk in the room, they must demand attention. Like you must look at them. So a lot of times it's that kind of personality who doesn't want to retire because they don't want to be replaced, right? They don't want to feel like anyone else is above them, right? In that same vein, I do kind of see it as someone who refuses to, just like we talked about, the King of Wands is normally very warm, very protective. He wants to share his experiences so they protect others. The King of Wands in reverse is almost the mirror of that, where I always kind of think of it as the person, if you're in a job situation, it's the person who has a lot of knowledge from their experience but refuses to cross-train or teach anyone else because they don't want to be, they don't want their influence usurped. They do not want to step down. They also get very fearful that someone might be better at what they're doing. So King of Wands can be insecurity, can be, well, I'm not the best anymore. What if somebody, comes in and takes over my reign? A lot of times it's a lot of bigotry. Sometimes you do see it, and because it rules action, sometimes you can see it in the vein of someone who abuses their power, someone who does get physically violent, or again, they just kind of they use their control to a negative end. A lot of times it's opposition. If you're in a work situation, it can be someone who's very, very vehemently opposing you and trying to block you at every turn. Sometimes it can be controversy. So, just like we talked about with, Prince Andrew, could be something that you did on a public scheme that made you look really bad, and it's more of a male figure. A lot of times it can be nepotism, like, family, someone who's, giving benefit, to their family, and they're using their power just to support only themselves and no one else. A lot of times it is ruthlessness and kind of tyranny. Tyranny really kind of stands out. It is someone who uses both force and clout to get what they want. But a lot of times it is just egotism and self-seeking. It's the funny thing is that the Emperor in reverse is usually my way or the highway, but the King of Wands in reverse is very much that way. One other vein too is that the King of Wands does kind of have a very strong arrogance about him. It's interesting, the King of Wands in upright, one last note on the upright king, the good king, is that I've talked to Aries personalities, and it's always such a fun conversation because they cut to the chase. They don't beat around the bush. If they want something done, they'll be like, "Hey, can you do this?" And they let a lot of things roll off them. But when that energy gets in the reverse, it's almost as if the bigotry kind of takes on a realm of this can be someone who doesn't want to feel equal to others, and sometimes that can lead to an insecurity. Like if in a world where, a lot of equal rights for minorities, equal rights for women, this could be the King of Wands in reverse, can be the person who opposes that because it's a threat to them. They don't want anybody to be an equal to them, and they'll definitely kind of play that card. So a lot of times it can be kind of that energy of being over empowered, and it can be supremacy. Now, in that same vein of just being kind of arrogant and in authority, it can be, the person that continues to do something wrong even though they know it's wrong. And so also on the tail end of that, it can mean a lot of con artists, right? And it, we talked before about it having a spiritual sense. It can be, it can be spiritual people who exploit others. Like it could be TV evangelists. It can be someone who, sells you on something but then doesn't deliver and then, steals off with your money. It can be a very liar or devious person because he does have that charisma. He can really get you to believe something. But a lot of times it usually is just someone who lacks concerns for others. And, in its extreme, if you see other cards that really talk about extreme behavior, it can be someone who is very malicious and they do so with action. But whether or not, whether or not this is more of a used car salesman kind of mentality, or if it really is that gregarious leader, the King of Wands is a very powerful card. And I always do, when I see him in a read, I see someone who is very, very courageous and very strong and very warm. And it's a wonderful card. And, it's the way we end the Wand suit. So with that being done, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let you choose your deck. The first deck is always the Rider-Waite-Smith, and paired with it is a Sunstone. The second deck is the Witch's Tarot, and paired with it is a Citrine. And the third is the Morgan Greer, and paired with it is a volcanic quartz. I'm sorry, I always knock my stones around. But I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. If you like the artwork or the stone, or maybe you are drawn to the timestamp, just choose from your intuition. If you need more time, please pause the video, and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, we're back. So let's go ahead and start with our first deck. It's the Rider-Waite-Smith and the Sunstone. So let's go ahead and see, how does the King of Wands manifest in your life? And again, this can be a person or a situation. Okay, and then that. And then future. Okay, wow. Oh my gosh. I'm getting a very clear story here, guys. So, deck number one, the way the King of Wands manifests in your life is that in the past, you have some very challenging energy. You have two major arcanas kind of sandwiching the Seven of Swords. And the top of it is, I always kind of read it like a tree. I kind of read it as like root growing into this and culminating or, blooming into that. And that's quite a bloom. When you bloom into the tower, that's something serious. But there are no bad cards in tarot, right? And also, you're the King of Wands. You've been there, done that. And honestly, this is past energy, so this might have been the been there part of your story, right? Been there and then done that is going to be your past and how you learn the things that made you the king, right? So it's vital. It's very vital to your journey. But in the past, I definitely see that. And this is actually very positive because you have at the root of the problem, root of the past, the situation, you have the world. And the world is about culmination. It's about completing a cycle. And honestly, guys, you have two cards about graduation here. So that's very, very positive. And one of the cards actually is a wands, which is your element. So You actually have 2 4s here too. And then I'm seeing the number 4 quite a bit. You might be seeing that as an angel number. Like sometimes if you look at the clock and it says 4:44, or I don't think the timestamp on this is going to be 4:44, maybe 24:44. But what it is that it's 4s are the cornerstones, right? And oh my gosh, that kind of plays into the tower too, because there's 4 corners. Like a foundation normally has 4 corners. And in the world card, you'll see in each corner there's what it is it's the water bearer, the eagle, the bull, and the Leo, the lion. And those are the 4 fixed signs, right? And the fixed signs of the zodiac are Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo, and Taurus. And they get things done, right? They're the completers. They're the people who see things out to fruition. So what it is that you had some kind of ending. What it was is you were completing some kind of cycle. And again, this might be due to some reckless behavior. It could very well, because this is how it manifests in your life. There's 2 ways that I kind of read it. This is either a person that gave you this experience. So it could have been a King of Wands that was in your life that kind of, and again, this can be a boyfriend, it can be a father, and it could be a woman that's in this energy. But you're either the King of Wands. I'm really getting the feeling like it's you. But you were kind of completing a cycle. And what it was is that in the past, you might have had some kind of impulsive behavior. In your youth, you might not have been that innocent. You might have done a few things that really kind of, the other thing about the wands is it's very instant gratification, right? So there might have been actions that you took that were impulsive. And what's happening is that it's almost like you had to kind of sneak away from that past energy. The other thing about the wands is that sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment, it's so engulfing. Because the other thing about the King of Wands is, how we talked about it being a real strong influencer, right? Have you ever gone to the mall and you're looking at the window and you're like, oh God, I need that $300 purse, right? I just need it. I need it. But then later when you get home, you're like, oh my God, I'm glad I didn't buy it until I got home, because I'm so much clearer now, right? With the wands, with the king, the knight, the page, sometimes when you're out in the world and you see what you want in front of you, and it's just like, oh, have you ever seen the movie Wayne's World when he's like, doo, 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 like it's like that aura around the thing that you want to do or the person that you want. And it seems like like you have to do it. Like nothing else matters. You have to do it. But then when you get home and you're like, oh my God, that's really not what I needed. It's really not what I wanted. But I've taken action with this person. I've committed to this thing. And then you find yourself kind of sneaking away, right? Like, okay, on second thought, it's kind of like on second thought. But the problem is that that's really gotten you into a lot of trouble. You might have hurt people might have hurt you, you might have just gotten into hot water with it. And it's one of those things where unfortunately you have to, the thing about King of Wands is he kind of takes responsibility for that. It was like, yeah, I was young and stupid, right? I was impulsive and I didn't mean to do that. But whatever it is that you definitely feel like what you did in the past. The other thing is the fact that the king is facing towards this. I do think that you kind of want to be different now. Like, I think that you do not want to continue to be in that behavior. And what it is that I think it's really growing you. I think those experiences have developed you. But it was that Wile E. Coyote kind of development where you really had to jump off the cliff quite a bit before you got it, before it came, it sunk in. But the only other thing is that you might still be dealing with ramifications from that, because the tower is lightning coming out of the sky and it's hitting your tower, right? And the tower, there are no bad cards in tarot, but it just means that your foundation with this is crumbling a little bit. Things that you've done in your past, and with all this fire, it's almost like that persona, or doing things and then needing to skulk away from them, or doing things and then having it really blow up in your face, or completely deteriorate because it was impulsive and it wasn't built to last, you're really learning from that. And that's the thing, is that the root of this is that was your graduation, right? You were meant to become the king from those experiences. And in the present, you actually have more affirmation of that. You got the Four of Wands, which is a very positive card. So what it is that I see you looking at the past and saying, okay, I don't want any more crumbling towers. I don't want to find myself in situations that I have to, you know, because we talked about him being opposing too, right? The other thing is that the King of Wands is very authentic. What you see is what you get, right? So I think I think you are still dealing with some kind of fallout from the past, from some of these past actions. I think you have matured. Again, both of these cards are about, graduating to the next level. Like, I think that it's taught you things. And presently, the Four of Wands really is about, I think in the present, I think you are being very authentic. I think you're saying, okay, I am going to think before I act. And what I show people is going to be me, right? But you remember that, this is the reason that he's him. The reason that he is so authentic is because he's made mistakes, right? He's not perfect, but he definitely has learned from that, and he doesn't want to display anything that is not true. And I think what it is the universe is saying, yes, you are now in a place of that. I also think that if this is relationship wise, because the other thing is we talked about, the Wands being a very romantic kind of guy. He's the grown up Knight of Wands. I do think that maybe you might have had, I don't see any cups in the past, but I do think that you probably have had a few experiences. Maybe you've had a few relationships that raked you over the coals, and now you're in a much more balanced place. Because the other thing is we talked about the force, right? The four corners of a tower, the four rods of, the mirrors. And then as we move forward, we're going to go into the Four of Cups. But I do think that you're in a more balanced place, but I do think that you are still dealing with a little bit of the fallout. I do think a lot of this old persona is still falling away. But I think presently you are feeling pretty strong. I do think that you feel like you've been victorious over these past, experiences. Now, alternatively, you could very well be dealing with some kind of situation. It could be damaged property. It could be the loss of some kind of foundation. I do also think that because of the King of Wands, he knows himself. He's very confident because of his experiences. It could be that you are graduating past a certain belief system, because the other thing is, wands are spirituality. Maybe if you were raised with a certain belief system, either that, or there might have been some kind of foundation that you were raised under that you really didn't agree with. It really wasn't you. And you did find yourself kind of clashing with it, kind of trying to sneak away, but you didn't like the sneaking part of it, because the wands, again, he does what he wants and he makes no apologies for it, and he's a mature masculine. So I think you got tired of being that way. You got tired of that expectation, and you said, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. And it's breaking down a foundation that was very ingrained in you, but it is like a graduation. I think you do feel a lot more stable. The other thing I get from this is that whatever this tower was, because it does kind of look like a building, right? One looks like a concrete building and the other one looks like kind of like a tent. I think you're presently kind of starting afresh with your own beliefs. It's almost like you're saying, I was given a tower and the tower wasn't me. So let the tower fall. I'm gonna walk away from that. I don't want that. That's not me. Let me go ahead and take one wand and create, it's just a tent. It doesn't have concrete walls, but it makes you happy, right? Because you also see the celebration there, that it makes you feel like you're building your own foundation, right? And that's where you are right now. but you are still reflecting a lot in the past because you see him looking back at it. And maybe you do have to, the other thing is maybe you have to kind of stand your guard against it. Maybe people have opinions about what you're doing now, but you're sticking by it and no one's going to question you, right? Because we talked about that. No one questions the King of Wands. He is who he is, and there's no changing that. Now, as you move forward, you got the Three of Pentacles and you got the Four of Cups, and that's a 3 to a 4, and that's like kind of the fourth four. You have the four corners of the tower, the Four Wands, and then the Four Cups. Now, what might be happening in the future? And you know what, to be honest, guys, I do think that maybe you might be moving away. I'm not seeing any family cards, so I don't think this is like a family belief. But I do think that you might be kind of going off on your own for a while. And it is hard. It's not easy to kind of forge your own path. But what does the King of Wands do? He's a trailblazer, right? And what you're going to do is you're really going to forge new supportive relationships. Like, again, I feel like there's a few relationships in your past that really crashed and burned, and I'm sorry, that's just really harsh, but sometimes people are meant to be in your life for a short time and not forever. I do think that you're finding some kind of solace in work or in your social groups. Maybe you have a hobby, and I do think that you're working with others. It's almost like you're finding camaraderie and companionship through work or through some other creative hobby that you do. But I do feel like you feel a little numb. I think you do long for more. It's almost like you want that house, you want that tower again. It's because you were so used to it for so long, and now you have to kind of forge your own path. But I do kind of get the feeling like you feel a little bit alone in that. Like, it's almost as if you have opportunities to collaborate in a romantic sense with someone, but you're scared of it. Not because the King of Wands is scared. He's definitely not a scaredy cat. But I think I'm almost getting a real cautious vibe. It's almost like you feel a little bit safer just keeping it to work and hobbies. I think that because of everything that you went through in your past, that you really do want to continue ahead with your own path. You want to do things. Remember how we said it's his way or the highway? You want to do things your way, and I think you're almost a little cautious to letting anybody else in. Like, you see 3 cups on the ground and one being handed to him, but he's really not interested, and it's kind of an apathy. But I just think that you've been through some controlling environments in the past, and you barely got away from that. And I think I'm getting a strong, you've come into your power, and you want to stay in your power. You don't want to give your power away to anyone. Now, one caution is that with the Four of Wands, that is a twin. That's a little bit of a twin flame card. You could have someone around you that you really feel like is a parallel to you. But in the future, you're keeping it to work, and you're not doing the love thing right now. And maybe that's your right, because again, I think if you've just gone through a tower moment, if you've had Seven of Swords moments, the other thing is that quite possibly in the past, and just to read it this way, is that the Seven of Swords is quite honestly the thief card. And with the tower crumbling, you could have had something taken from you. It could be property. It could be something. I'm not seeing too many finances, but I'm definitely seeing as if something you might have felt a little bit, victimized. And it was a cycle for you, like going through that experience. It did. It made you become the King of Wands. And I know that sounds so trite. I hate when I have to give that message where, you went through something crappy in order to grow, which, but it does. Unfortunately, that's the side effect of it, is that when you go through one experience, if you're taken advantage of, you don't ever let that happen again, right? and you grow stronger. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But I do see you in a beautiful place right now. I do think that you're feeling very strong. You're feeling very balanced. You're doing it your way. You're not, you're not letting anybody tell you how to do things. But as you go forward, I do think that you're keeping a collaborative mindset, but I am almost getting a feeling like you're keeping boundaries up, but it's almost like you're collaborating. I'm really drawn to the fact that this guy is on one side of the room and the other two people are like on the other side of the bench, right? I think you're really kind of saying, in order to keep control of your life, it's almost like you're staying all work and you're not really letting your heart get too engrossed. I do kind of get a feeling as if you might still be healing a little bit too, but I do think that right now or in the future, the immediate future, you're not going to be real quick to go for anything else. But I do think that you're rebuilding. That's the other thing, is that you have 4, 3, and 4. I think you're rebuilding. You're getting your foundation back and you're doing it your way. And it is, I think you're feeling very comfortable at work, because work is kind of that nice boundary where you can interact with people, but then you clock out and go home and you don't have to interact with people. So I do kind of get the feeling as if, like emotionally, you might be a little bit, like not ready to venture into that area. But at work, you're willing to collaborate with people, but in the emotional arena, that might be giving up too much of your power, at least for the immediate future. But all right, guys, so that's how the King of Wands is manifesting in your life. Wow, you see, he's a powerful king. So the second card, we'll go ahead, and it's the Witch's Tarot. And again, I know the moment I point out, if you watch the intro, the moment I point out that one area of the card, you kind of never look at him the same way, right? But I promise you, your read won't be all about that, because he has a smile on his face, right? But deck number 2, how does the King of Wands manifest in your life? I love the way that the sunset kind of reflects off his throne, too. He's on a golden throne. So deck number 2, how does the King of Wands manifest in your life? Okay. Ooh, we have a flipper. And then future. Oh, wow. You got 2 7s. It actually really does play. I'm giggling because it really does play into this king's persona, doesn't it? I'm getting a very clear message. All right. So so in the past, guys, so your King of Wands, in the past, you got the Strength card, which is a major arcana, and it's really a beautiful card. Now, quite honestly, you might have some Leo in your chart. Either that, or you might be a Leo woman. Honestly, when I look at this king, I get a real strong Aries vibe. So this could be, this King of Wands, the way that he's manifesting in your life is it could be someone that you're dealing with. So the King of Wands might be someone who's in your life. Or if you are the King of Wands, in the past, Strength talks about a lot about taming one's inner desires. I definitely see I kind of see a Leo Virgo cusp, because Leo is ruled by the lion and Virgo is the virgin. And you see that a lot with the Strength card. You see the woman who's kind of taming this big lion. And the lion is about strength and about soul, right? There was another deck that I thought about pulling out, which is the Line Strider Tarot by Cilio Thompson. And the King of Wands in that deck is actually a lion. He kind of, what he reminds me of is the lion in that deck reminds me of Aslan from the Chronicles of Narnia. But in this deck, I almost kind of see the same thing. It's almost like I think you really kind of tame your desires. I do get the feeling as if you are a little bit more of a sexual kind of person, and you can be a man or a woman, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that's, what it is it's your life, right? And as long as everyone involved in that, pursuit is consenting and of age, do what you choose, right? The other thing is I do get a sense that you pursue your passions, right? And that doesn't have to be in an amorous sense every single time. It can be that you really do just, go after the things that you want. But in the past, I do see that with the strength is that you do try to rein it in, right? You try to, and because he's the king, right? He's the person who's had the experiences. He's the person who's been through the page. He's lived through the page. He's lived through the night. Um, Knigh. Um, in the past, you really probably had to rein in a little bit of your passion because in order to be a king, you can't be immature. You have to be the mature expression. So I do get the feeling like in the past, in order to come into your kinghood, in order to be that mature energy, that sometimes you might have had to kind of control your passions a little bit. You might have had to just not so much suppress them, but you might have to channel them a little bit. You might have to really analyze them and say, okay, is this the right thing to do? Am I being impulsive or stupid? Should I do this? And you've had a great strength. You have kept yourself in check in the past. Now, in the present, you got the Three of Cups. Now, the thing that I'm seeing here is the Three of Cups is normally a celebration card. It is a little bit about partying. It is a little bit about partying. It's normally about, being out there, being free, and celebrating with friends. So quite honestly, you could be kind of the life of the party within your friend group. It could be that you have a posse of friends. Quite honestly, I do see the Three of Cups, especially with the King of Wands. I see it as kind of a posse card. Maybe you have two other guys or two other girls that you hang with that are your crew, right? Your wingmen, wingwoman. And but I do kind of get the feeling, and especially, I do take the imagery into consideration. I talked in the intro, and if you didn't see it, in the intro you see that he has one hand on the wand, and you kind of get an idea where his other hand is, right? And I am getting a strong vibe that that's associated to this middle energy. And what it is that with strength being in the past, I do think that you have a little bit of a lust for having variety in your romantic life. I do think that you're not quite settled down yet. You are in your king energy because what it is that you rein in that desire. Like you're not going to let your need to kind of want to date around taint your reputation. And so you'll rein it in when necessary, right? Like you'll be careful not to ask out people at work or to, put yourself in a situation that would be fodder for gossip, right? But I do think that you still have those desires, and I think that you control them, and that's part of you being in your mature energy. And I think at present you really are kind of in a good place with that. I think you are kind of a happy single person. The other thing I kind of get from it is maybe you're a very successful person. Like again, you're a successful and respected businessman, but you could just be, or a businesswoman. Again, you can be a man, you can be a woman in the King of Wands energy. And what I kind of think of is, you've seen those advertisements where they talk about, day to night, well, I'm a CEO by day, but then, I'm a partier by night. I do also get the vibe that you play hard and you work hard. You work hard and you play hard. So it's quite possible that in the past, and you keep a balance with that. You have strong desires, but you know how to regulate those desires. You go to work during the day. You're a respected person. You work hard, and then at night, you if you go out and go out on the scene, go to a dating event, go to a some kind of party, have drinks with other people, and mingle. That is your prerogative. That's what you want to do, right? And you've fully earned that because you've conducted yourself. You're not letting yourself get out of hand, and you're a single person, right? But I do think that the other thing that I get is that maybe you are very respected at work. Again, you're kind of the thing about the wands, both especially the king and the queen, is that you're kind of, I hate to put it this way, but when you're single, it's almost like being prime emotional real estate. I'm kind of getting that vibe from you. Like, I'm on the market, I'm on the market. And it's one of those things, again, I think you're conducting yourself with decorum, but you are still single, and you're like, okay, anybody want to put a down payment on this, right? But you are still mingling, and you keep your base desires in check. Now, the future is quite interesting. I do kind of think I am getting a pretty strong, mature single vibe, because you got 2 7s, and this is pretty wild, guys. And there's a lot of money showing up in here too. But you got the 7 of Pentacles, and you got the 7 of Cups. And I really kind of like the 7 of Cups in this depiction, because the imagery, most of the time the 7 of Cups is about a man who's looking at cups, and he looks kind of disillusioned, like he doesn't know what cup to choose. In this deck, it's a wizard, right? And it's almost like a wizard, and again, an experienced person, manifesting options, right? You're manifesting options. And that's very much a King of Wands concept. He goes out and makes things happen. He's a doer, right? He doesn't sit at home and guess what's going to happen. He goes out and takes action to make things happen. But the 7 of Pentacles is watching. He's a farmer, and he's watching it grow, and it's almost like an expression of things not going fast enough. Either that, or it's kind of an expression of, well, when is this going to cultivate into something bigger, right? And the root of that is, you got the 9 of Pentacles at the root of it. And the 9 of Pentacles is an independent person. It's someone who they've grown all their wealth. They're stable. They're in a good place, right? So I'm really getting the feeling like, I think just like you keep your passions in check, I think you've really reached a plateau. You've reached a good place in your life where you're very financially stable. And it's almost like right now you're kind of you're kind of celebrating your success. Again, you're kind of a single, primetime real estate kind of guy, you know what I mean? Like, not in the sense that you're a real estate agent, but meaning that, okay, who's going to land this, right? Who's going to, again, who's going to be, and I think that's on your mind. I think moving forward, your future is that I'm in a pretty darn good space, right? I'm in a good place. Who wants a piece of this, right? And I think you're kind of manifesting your options. You're saying, okay, well, where do I want to go with all of my status? Who do I want to be with? So I do think that you're in a good place right now. I think it is due to your diligence. You've channeled your energy into great success. I think you're a very independent person. You don't need anybody for financial security. But I do kind of get the feeling, the fact that you're going from the 3 of Cups to 2 7s, I do think that you kind of have your eye on the future. And again, this being a mature energy, I think you might have, I really get the feeling like you've had, also because the King is the culmination, he's the last card of the suit. I think you've had your fun. And again, you might be enjoying your fun right now. Again, work hard, play hard. But and I do think that you have a little bit of a sexual appetite, but I do think that that's almost kind of waning right now. You're enjoying it for right now, but as you look to the future, you know that you're a catch, right? You know that you're outgoing, you know what you can do, and you're in a position of power. But it's almost like you're looking, and the thing with the 7 of Pentacles is it's someone who's waiting for more, right? It's someone who's evaluating where this is going to go. And the 7 of Cups is about making a choice. I think I think you've enjoyed some success, and I think right now you're really enjoying the boons of your labor. Again, you're partying, you're celebrating, you're dating, but you know that this energy isn't going to satisfy you forever. And I think you are looking to the future, because in the future, it's like, okay, I'm independent, happy, single, but where do I want to be? Where do I want this to take me? Because I don't want to, you can sit in your own garden by yourself as much as you want. You can get company when you want company. But I do think that you're looking for more. I don't think that this is exactly satisfying. I mean, it satisfies it's instant gratification, but I think you are looking to the future. I think you have a lot of options. Like, really, you have 7 different paths that you can take right now. You can move to the other. It's almost like I'm almost hearing, like, should I move to California? Should I sell my house and get that little, rancher that I've been looking at? Should I take this other job? It's almost kind of like that. I think you're planning your next move. You're in a good, comfortable place, but you're planning your next move and you're wondering where you should go. And these are 2 sevens. I really do feel like you have several. It might not be as many as 7 options, but pretty darn close. Usually the number really does play into it, especially when you get it twice. But I just think that you have options. The other thing that I kind of get is that, again, with the King of Wands being the mature masculine of the Wands, I think also with the 7 of Pentacles, that's really about kind of, being practical about what you choose. You're not going to be impulsive about it. You in the past, you might have had impulsivity burn you, and again, been there, done that. So I do. The other kind of vibe that I get is that whether this be home or family or situation, work, I think that you do want to make choices that will satisfy you in the long. And you're really thinking hard about that. You're like, okay, of these 7 cups, the one that I choose, is it going to give me that partner that is my match? Is it going to give me that home that I want to spend 30 years in? Is it going to give me that job that I don't get tired of? That's what you're thinking. But you are in a good position right now, and right now you are almost the present. You are kind of celebrating. You're in a really good spot, and you're satisfying your desires because you've earned it. But as you move forward, you are still, prime real estate on the market, in a position to really take the next step wherever you want to go. You're versatile, but you want that next step to be very, very a steady step, and you want it to be, a careful decision, and you will. I do think, the other thing about the King of Wands is that if it does require a little bit of risk, you're going to make the right risk. And you might do it with a little bit of flourish, because that's how you operate. But that's a really good future, guys. And you might feel a little murky, like the jury's still out. You might not have made your decision yet, but I think that you're going to do, you're not going to be afraid of any, having many options does not intimidate you. It actually inspires you. It probably really get you stoked. So gosh, guys, so that's how the King of Wands manifests in your life. That's really positive. I like that read. You're an exciting character. All right, so deck number 3, and again, if you watch my channel, this is not the first tarot deck that I've ever owned, but it was my second tarot deck, and it was the first tarot deck that I've ever actually learned the meanings. So this is a vintage deck. I've had it for a very long time, and I love this king. So the King of Wands from the Morgan Greer. Let's go ahead and see, how does this King of Wands manifest in your life? And I think Emperor when I see this guy. He's such a strong man. He's a man's man. Okay, please clarify. Ooh. Wow, guys. And then future, please. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, if I haven't mentioned before, the Morgan Greer deck, and again, I'm not trying to get woo-woo, I don't mean to freak anybody out, but, you know, again, I read cards, so the Morgan Greer always speaks to me. Again, it's my first quote-unquote real deck, and it always speaks to me. I get flyers. So we do have the Wheel of Fortune, the Two of Swords, and the Five of Cups. And okay, so I will gladly go ahead and get into this. There's quite a few cards here, but this flyer in particular really wants to clarify your past, your history. So we'll go ahead and get into it. So the your King of Rods, which I really love this King of Rods. He always looks like he just imbues, he really comes across as the warm king. I don't know if it's something about the beard or just, you know, the eagle on his helmet. I get that really strong, reliable sense. Like, you know what it feels like, and I know this sounds crazy. This king always feels like a warm hug to me, and I think that's why I picked him. There was another deck I could have picked called the Line Strider Tarot that had kind of a lion king on it, and I'm gonna have that song stuck in my head all day long. Oh my god, that intro. Okay, sorry. All right, guys, I'm sorry. I'm getting a little loopy. I promise I'll keep it together. But he does. He feels like a warm king, like a protective king. Like he does, just like we said in the intro, he would use his knowledge, his experience to protect and to encourage, to inspire. But and he's learned from his experiences. But in the past, we have there are no bad cards in tarot, but we have some pretty strong cards in the past. In the past, you have the Ten of Swords, and then you have the Three of Wands, and you have the Two of Cups. And the way that it's showing is, I always look at it this way. When you get three cards like that, I always look at it kind of like a tree. This is the root, this is the where it grew, and this was the culmination. So it's almost like this was the root of what happened, this is what grew out of that, and this is how it ended. And right next to it, you have the Empress in the reverse. So quite honestly, I feel quite strongly that the King of Rods is you. I think this Empress is a separate person. But I think the King of Rods is you. And the King of Rods, you can be a woman watching this reading. It just means your energy, right? It just means you're in a mature, masculine energy. And goodness knows, you know, women, we can put the pants on and we can date like a man, we can work like a man, we can, gender really makes no difference. But in the past, I do get the feeling like in the past you had and the thing with the rods, we had a tarot on the page and on the night. The rods is what I call, and I even said it with the page and the night, it's what I call the Zoom. And that the Zoom is not a virtual meeting site. My definition of Zoom is that when you're young and you fall in love for the first time, or you start doing something that just absolutely lights your fire, right? Lights your fire. You feel the Zoom. It's like you're free falling. You want to learn everything about it. And especially when it comes to a person, it is almost a little bit like a love bomb. It's like you want to know everything about this person. You want to spend every moment with this person. You want to talk to them on the phone all day long. Everything about them invades your thoughts. And that's the Two of Cups energy. You met someone that you felt that kind of connection to. You really zoomed with this person. You fell free fall into this. And what happened was this relationship or this connection grew into a Three of Rods. And we had a tarot on the Three of Wands, and what it is you were really looking to the future, right? And this being a 2 to the 3, it's almost like your emotions were really connected, really touched by someone, that you wanted to take action. I almost get the feeling like I think you really wanted the whole 9 yards with this person. Like, have you ever had those relationships where you Zoom, you fall into it, and then you just imagine, okay, let's get a house together, let's get married, let's have kids, let's, move. You get the thing about the Three of Wands is you see this wide scene in front of you, right? And the other thing about the Three of Wands is that it almost looks like him, right? It looks like a young version of the king, right? We also said in the How to Tarot on the Three of Wands is that they're the people who lead by example. And I think what happened was, again, you got into a real connection with someone. It was an emotional connection that you started seeing that whole vista in front of you. You started walking the talk. You started saying, okay, let's start putting things in place. And you were really waiting for your ships to come in. You were putting this emotional beginning into action. And you were completely all in. You were all in. And I'm so sorry that it went from 2 to 3 to 10. And the 10 is a culmination. The 10 is the end. I do think that maybe you got I think that maybe you might have gotten backstabbed by someone. Either that, and I hate to read this card. I mean, the Ten of Swords is never a picnic, but Ten of Swords, there are no bad cards in tarot. The Ten of Swords are just really, it's, every tarot reader, every person has a favorite card, and I don't think the Ten of Swords is anyone's favorite. But the thing is, the only way that I can read that is because sometimes, sometimes the Ten of Swords can be exaggerated, like you feel like you're being betrayed and you're not. But there's such a contrast here. It's like warm emotional connection, vibrant, let me see the whole world in front of me, and then boom, 10 swords in the back, bleeding on the ground, and it's snowing. And the only thing I can think of with that is that really what you thought was beginning was not. I am kind of getting the feeling like maybe someone love bombed you a little bit. Maybe someone really came on strong and thought they were going to give you everything. But the other thing is that I'm not so much getting that, just because there was, even with the other cards that kind of popped out, I did not see any knights in reverse, and I didn't see any knights at all. But what came out to the side is that you got the Empress in the reverse. You got the Empress in the reverse. So this can kind of mean one of a couple things. If you are a man or a woman, it can mean that a mother or a mother figure kind of got in the way of something. Maybe you started dating someone that was not approved of by your family. The other thing that I can read, and again, with the King of Rods being a very warm but outgoing, all of the Rod suits are very independent. They don't like being tied down. The King of Rods is a little bit better with commitment than the Knight, but the other thing about the Empress is that when she's in the reverse, she can be a little bit of a smother mother. She can be someone who's very clingy. And what might have happened is you might have legitimately had a connection to someone. And again, this is 2, 3, and then jump straight to 10, right? Game over. I think what might have happened is that maybe it started off as a nice connection and you were looking to the future, but you weren't like, this is not 8 of Wands, this is 3 of Wands. And then all of a sudden this person started to become real needy, and that just killed it. Or maybe it could legitimately be that this person you were dealing with might have started to show some kind of psychological or really not right characteristics. Like you felt really close to them and you wanted to move things forward, but then all of a sudden things started to get real either toxic or clingy or just not healthy. And you felt, again, you felt claustrophobic, so therefore you either tried to slow things down or to try to get a hold on it, and it just, ended in, game over, dead stop. The only other thing that I can think of, and again, just, being in a real world where we have real situations like this, it could be a situation where someone got pregnant and maybe again, the spark of love, seeing the future. Now, the thing is that and I just have to read it this way because it could mean this way, and I do not, just a real quick trigger warning, sometimes there's some really real messages that come out, and I do not want to upset anyone, so please do not take this as the honest goodness truth. This is just me reading the symbols. The Empress could be someone who got pregnant intentionally or got pregnant and for whatever reason did not keep the baby, and that might have caused conflict, because that would, if there is an unwanted pregnancy or someone gets pregnant and it's unexpected, that can be trying sometimes. And that can really make us face decisions about things. And whatever your belief is when it comes to, conceiving and bringing a child into the world, if those are different. And the other thing is the wands is spiritual belief. So if your belief about, what to do when that situation occurs, but there is something that seems very kind of cold and not mothering about this. So it could be some kind of situation that someone did not keep a baby, or that after you start getting close to someone and all of a sudden they're starting to act like your mother, or they're just clinging on you, or just doing something that's really kind of repelling you. And the King of Wands, again, him being a real fiery guy, he might say something about it and then all of a sudden it's game over, But the other thing that I might get from this is that it could be that you might have a mother that came in the middle. You might, again, you might have been really drawn to someone and saw a future with someone, and then something happened either with your mother or your family might be getting involved that just kind of ended this relationship. The last interpretation, and then I'll move on, is that it could very well, because this is such a warm beginning, guys. This is such the spark of something really beautiful. And then it's like, full break, stop, 10 swords. This might have been a cheating situation. And so the last interpretation, and again, please don't be triggered, if you need to skip this part of the read, but because the last situation would be, because again, we talked about how the King of Wands is a sexual guy, and if he was really starting to see you were really starting to see a future with this Empress, if this person was with somebody else or got pregnant with somebody else, that would be like 10 swords to the back, right? You wanted to start this life, you were really feeling this connection, then all of a sudden a betrayal occurred, right? But definitely it is with someone that you really thought was nurturing and kind, and then they turned out to not be that at all, because it can be a very controlling or kind of emotionally not on the level person. But I am getting kind of a betrayal vibe. And the thing with the King of Wands is he's been through, this would be a tough experience that would develop him, but he's not having that, right? And he's definitely not going to put up with anyone who's going to try to control him. Now, the present energy is much happier. It's much happier. It's you've got Temperance, which is that angel balancing two elements. And she's got one foot on earth and one foot in the water. And then you've got the Eight of Wands. So there's definitely, presently, I think you've stood in your power. If this was some kind of betrayal, or if this was some kind of ending that really hurt, because the other thing is that there's a lot of pain in this, I think you are moving forward. I think that you're still looking back at it, of course. The King of Rods is always going to look, it's almost like that situation really forged you, right? It really created who you are. And, but what's happening is, in your present life, the thing about Temperance is that whether or not you believe in a higher power or not, it really is about the universe bringing balance to the situation. If you were wronged, or you did feel like betrayed in a situation, and again, these are thoughts. That's the other thing, is sometimes that's one thing I can say about the Ten of Swords. Sometimes you can think that something completely betrayed you, but it's perception, right? Because swords are thoughts, right? You might have saw something that you thought, okay, this person totally betrayed me. They're dead to me now. But and the King of Rods is guilty of that too. He's impulsive. He'll jump to conclusions, right? But the other thing about rods is that rods are honesty, they're truth. And you've got the Eight of Rods moving you forward. So there is balance coming to this situation. I think you're getting emotionally balanced, and I think you're forging ahead. Like you're moving forward very swiftly, right? There's swift action occurring, and it's occurring now. But there is some kind of balance. The other thing is that there are two cups in this situation. So I do think that this was somebody in your past that was very important to you. And I don't think this was a relationship that you wanted to end. I think something occurred here, whether it be a misunderstanding or a misconception. But the other thing is that the thing about the Eight of Wands is that it is about after a long period of things being stagnant, things are starting to move again and things are starting to get balanced. And it is almost like divine intervention. I really think that things are meant to be balanced with you and this other person or whomever hurt you. Now, as you move forward, so you're moving ahead right now very quickly, and things are going to get, whatever happened in the past is going to get level. There's temperance is going to occur. You are going to, there's like a recalibration happening that's going to make everything that happened equal. And I know that sounds like that sounds like a big order, but you'd be amazed. The universe there's a method to the madness. Sometimes things happen for a reason. And currently, whatever events happened in the past that helped develop you into this King of Rods, you're moving quite ahead. You're still reflecting on the past, but you're moving ahead, and things are being put into balance on almost on a spiritual scale. Now, the future is actually quite beautiful. You got Justice, and you got the Four of Cups. Now, one other way I could possibly read this is that maybe you did start a new relationship with someone, but because the Empress kind of came out to the side, maybe you had some kind of obligation to someone else. It could be the mother of your children, it could be your mother, it could be an ex-wife or an ex-girlfriend that really put a halt to whatever this new relationship was, and you couldn't pursue it. But it damaged it. It damaged it really irrevocably. And what's happening now is it's almost like you're getting justice in the future. The beautiful thing about Justice is that it is a lot of Libra energy, and justice is about making things whole. And I'm getting a real beautiful sense by these two cards. It's almost like, if something was if something was thrown out of whack, if a relationship was affected by this situation, whatever this Ten of Swords was, things will get level again, and there will be a fair outcome. And the thing about justice is that whether or not you're in the wrong or whether or not you think you're in the wrong, justice is going to be served. Whatever caused the situation to be harmful, justice is going to come through and make it right. It's going to level the scales again, right? And it could be an admission that maybe you did a few things that were not on the level. Maybe the other person did things that were not on the level. But justice is going to call out both of you, and it's going to make everything fair again. Now, the only thing is that underneath justice is you did get the Four of Cups. And the Four of Cups is a little bit of an apathy card. It's a little bit about being numb, right? It's almost like, I do think that you're a little gun shy because, the other thing is that in the past, it's almost like he's pushing that cup at the woman, right? Then in the present, the angel is mixing the two cups. And in the future, it's almost like that angel is trying to give the cup back to you, but you don't want it. Like you refuse to even see it, right? Because you think, oh God, okay, I've had a cup given to me before and that didn't end well, right? But the two cards kind of that came out across the Four of Cups is you got the Ace of Rods and you got the Six of Pentacles. And the Six of Pentacles is about balance. The other thing that you see is that in Justice, the scales are a little off, but in the Six, the scales are almost balanced. I'm really beginning to wonder if there was something from your past that you needed to either pay off, or again, this could be child support, it could be something in the past. And if you're dealing with the King of Rods, maybe he had some kind of relationship in this past that he wasn't telling you about, and you embarked on this really strong relationship, and then all of a sudden, boom, well, I'm still married, or I have a wife and kids, and then you're like, okay, this is done. That would feel like a betrayal. But as you move forward, I do think that you are feeling a little numb, but justice is coming. Things will level out. The other thing is that the fact that the Ace of Wands is a hand from the sky, with a rod, and the King of Rods is there, he holds a rod. Maybe it could be that, maybe you were dealing with a King of Rods, and again, the fact that the King of Rods is looking back, I almost get the feeling like you're dealing with a King of Rods who's going to come back into your life in the future. And presently, that you don't see it happening right now because it's behind the scenes, right? Like, you don't see who's throwing these rods, right? And the angel, this is the angel, mixing the two cups again, right? So there's a lot that's going on under the surface with your King of Rods. And the other thing is that I think that maybe when this person was dealing with you before, he was just not as mature. You see how young that guy looks, and you see how mature he is now. Maybe you did have an encounter with someone that you felt a deep connection with, and it just ended. And maybe it ended because of their mother, or maybe an ex-girlfriend or someone. It could be someone who they had children with. And then all of a sudden you thought it's over, right? You just thought, okay, that's the end of that. He lied, he did this, whatever. But it does look like things presently, he's still thinking about you, and things are very swiftly moving forward. And you have some divine backing in this. Spirit has your back. Spirit wants to make this right. And not to get all woo-woo, but it's true. If somebody wants to be with you and you want to be with the other person, the universe, energy follows thought. And if you're thinking about this other person, wondering why it didn't work out, and then you're fueling it with your energy because you want to be back with that person. But I do see in the future that there will be justice. Justice will be served. And again, the thing about justice is if you were in the wrong, you'll be called on it. If they were in the wrong, they'll be called on it. But you are a little gun shy. But I do think that the other thing is that with those scales, oh my gosh, I think this person, this King of Rods, either you are going to be approaching the person that got wronged and offering them a new start, a fair start, or this person from your past is going to show back up again, and he is a King of Rods kind of energy. And it's going to be at a time that you're really numb. Like, you're just like, okay, sure, go ahead, make that right. Peace, bye. It's almost like, it is almost like justice is coming a little slow for you. But when it shows back up, when that king shows back up, it is almost like, the other energy that I get from this is that they are going to show up and be like, I know that what happened was not fair, right? And the other thing about the King of Rods is, remember, we told him he's an action dude, right? He does what's right, and he's very inactive until he's called to action, or he knows that the action that he's taking is going to work. So I do think that once everything is, maybe he has former debts or something, once everything is level and everything is paid off, it's almost going to be like a great reward. They're going to show back up and be like, okay, you know, the only other thing I can think of is that if the Knight of the King of Rods is you, is that you will probably, it is probably going to take a little bit of time to make the situation right. You are going to feel a little numb by it. You're going to feel a little gun shy. But when the time is right, you are going to have to show back up. It's going to be like a very passionate new start, but it's almost like you have to approach in kind of like the justice way and be like, okay, I owe this to you, right? All of this from the past is resolved. It's done. You know, I've paid. Everything is equal. The only other thing I can think of is you might be dealing with someone who legitimately had a brush with the law, where they had to go to court about something, and then once everything is resolved with the court, they might approach you and be like, okay, would you still be open to, you know, interacting with me? Which is a very mature King of Rods, you know, taking responsibility for his actions kind of thing. But wow, guys, that had a lot of scenarios in it. I hope that made sense. But I do get a sense of responsibility from this person. So I think the situation is going to work itself out in the future in a very fair way, which is always good to see. But all right, so that concludes the last card of the wand suit. And oh my gosh, guys, I can't believe we've already done with the wands. But I do host a weekly energy card reading on Saturday. If you get a chance, please check that out. If not, next Tuesday, we're going to be starting on the Pentacle suits. So we're gonna be talking about Earth, and we're gonna talk about the Ace of Pentacles. I hope you can join me then, and that you have a good week, and I'll see you later. Bye.